Another Formula One race in 2023. Another Red Bull won too, but this time it was Sergio Perez who finished first while his teammate Max Verstappen finished second. What was Max's reaction to Perez's victory in Saudi Arabia? Stay tuned to find out. As the engines roared and the tyres screeched in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, all eyes were on the Red Bull team and their two drivers, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. The race was intense, with Verstappen starting from 15th on the grid and Perez starting in pole position. But it was Verstappen who stole the show, scorching his way through the field to finish second, just behind his teammate Perez. However, despite the impressive finish, one person wasn't impressed. Max's father, Jos Verstappen. The elder Verstappen watched the race from the sidelines, his grim stare giving away his frustration and disappointment. While Perez hugged and high-fived his team members after the race, Jos Verstappen remained stone-faced and unapproachable. This tension between the two Red Bull drivers has been brewing since last year's Monaco Grand Prix, where Perez crashed during qualifying, preventing Verstappen from setting a quick lap. The Verstappen camp was convinced that the crash was deliberate, and that they petitioned the team to study the telemetry. Although there was no conclusive evidence of foul play, the incident opened up a rift between the two drivers that have yet to heal. It's clear that Jos Verstappen is still holding a grudge against Perez, despite the Mexican driver's impressive performance in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But this isn't just a personal feud between two drivers. It's a reflection of the intense competition and pressure that exists within the world of Formula One. With Verstappen and Perez both vying for the championship title, every race counts, and every point matters. The tensions between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez escalated much more during last year's incident in Brazil. Despite Red Bull having already secured the Constructors' Championship, Verstappen refused to move over and let Perez take 6th place in the race, which would have given him 2 points and helped him finish second in the Drivers' Championship. Perez was outraged and publicly criticized Verstappen, saying that his actions showed his true character. The feud between the two drivers even reached the point where Verstappen's mother, Sophie Kumpen, posted a message on Instagram accusing Perez of cheating on his wife after his win in Monaco. The post was quickly deleted, but the damage was done, and the tensions between the two drivers remain high. Despite this, the two drivers have been cordial in public, but there is clearly no love lost between them. The question remains whether we could see a repeat of the infamous battles between teammates in Formula One history, such as Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg in 2016 or Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost in 1989. The prospect of Verstappen and Perez fighting it out for the championship title would certainly add to the drama and excitement of the season. Verstappen, a generational talent, is in another league to Perez. A fine driver on his day, but not consistently quick enough to challenge the Dutchman. 2 race wins to Verstappen's 15 last year tells its own story. Verstappen nearly won this one too, despite starting 15th thanks to his drive shaft failure in qualifying. Admittedly, the double world champion's cause was helped by a safety car on lap 18, which made the race closer than it might have been. Verstappen was 4th by that point, 20 seconds behind Perez. After the restart, Verstappen made short work of Mercedes' George Russell and then Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso before setting his sights on his teammate, who is now just over 5 seconds up the road. Perez just about managed to maintain that margin for the rest of the race, although it got tense, with the Mexican urgently asking his pit wall what times Verstappen was setting while the Dutchman, for his part, demanded to know which of them held the fastest lap. He was told, "We're not concerned about that." He shot back, "Yeah, but I am." Max Verstappen expressed his frustration with Red Bull Racing after finishing second in Saudi Arabia. The Dutch driver, who finished behind his teammate Sergio Perez, was critical of his team's performance. Verstappen pointed out that reliability was just as important as pace and that his first weekend was not very clean due to some balance issues from testing to the race weekend, as well as other issues going on in the background. He also mentioned that he had an issue in qualifying, despite having 3 positive practice sessions. The Red Bull driver emphasized that he was not happy with finishing in second place and that he was not in the sport to be anything but first. He stated that as a team fighting for the championship, they needed to make sure that both cars were reliable. Verstappen said, "When you are fighting for a championship, when it looks like it's just between 2 cars, you have to make sure those 2 cars are reliable. We have to do better, absolutely." Verstappen is just 1 point ahead of Perez in the overall standings after the first 2 races of the year. As he alluded to, they look to be the only ones mounting a serious title challenge this year, with the Red Bull cars in a league of their own on the grid in the early stages of this season. Verstappen admitted when reflecting on his race, "Realistically, with or without the safety car, I think P2 was the highest possible. Then the pace was good. The safety car helped me out a bit to get back in the race. But even with that, in the restart, you just lose too much time to Checo, so once I got into P2, it was quite a decent gap. Let's say on a track where there's not a lot of tyre degradation." Jos Verstappen, who is a former Formula One driver himself and also the father of current driver Max Verstappen, did not hold back in expressing his disappointment after his son was beaten to the checkered flag by Sergio Perez at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. In a post-race interview, he suggested that his son's misfortunes during the race were the only reason why Perez was able to win. Jos said of his son's fastest lap, "I just knew he was going to do it. Nice, is it not? That way, he will at least remain the leader in the championship. Of course, we all want to win, but that was not possible today. The margin was too small for that. I don't think Perez gets the chance that often." He sees that too, and then goes for it. It went against us in qualifying. Bad luck. I won't go into that. We know what it is, but otherwise, Max just easily drives to that pole position. And then the race is a bit easier, because we actually already predicted that it is quite difficult to come forward here. This is a track with long turns, so it's hard to make a difference here. We need more difficult circuits and more corners. Speaking of Red Bull cars, Verstappen Sr. added, "It looks like we will be dominant. We have a very good car. If you saw how easily they drove away now too, a second faster. Whether that can be overtaken by the rest of the year, I don't know. But it's not like we're standing still either. We are also coming up with updates." Christian Horner isn't worried about a feud breaking out between his Red Bull drivers. The team boss adamant that they're aware the rules of engagement are team first. Horner says he and his drivers are ready for it, with everyone well aware that at the end of the day, Red Bull's interests come first. Horner said, "We've got two very mature drivers. They've worked well together previously. We went through the race together beforehand and also discussed the scenario in question as it eventually unfolded. About that, we said, look, you're free to race, but the rules of engagement are a team first and respect each other, respect the car you're driving, and we want to bring home maximum points." And they've done that. As for Verstappen going for the fastest lap time, at a time when both drivers had been told a target time, Horner said, "I think inevitably, as Max said on the radio, the point for the fastest lap meant a great deal to him. And there was no reason for us to not let either he or Checo have a crack at it." Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton said on Sunday that he'd never seen a car as fast as the Red Bull, but Sky Sports F1 reporter Croft does not believe Horner's team will win all 23 races this term, saying they will be dented by their reduction of wind tunnel time for breaching the cost cap. He said it is a big ask to win every single race. They won't do it. The other thing, of course, is that as the season goes on, they will get less wind tunnel time than certainly Aston Martin. The fact we've got an Aston Martin Red Bull battle at the moment is brilliant because Aston Martin gets 100% of the time because they finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship last year. Red Bulls get 70% of the time, but because they were naughty boys and girls and overspent on the cost cap, they only get 63%. That equates to about 120 wind tunnel runs in the course of an 8-week period. Asked about Red Bull's dominance and if it is bad for the sport, Croft added, "Going into that race, talking to the people in the paddock, nobody was saying they're going to fight Max if he comes up behind them because everybody is saying Red Bull aren't our race at the moment." That does worry me a bit because the whole point of the cost cap and the wind tunnel and CFD restrictions was to close the competition so you weren't going to get a team blasting by, as Max did with Lewis like an F2 car trying to defend against an F1 car. There was no fighting. What's your thought about Max Verstappen's reactions to Perez's victory? Let us know in the comments section below.